Baghdad lit up before it knew it was at war. Green tracer fire tore into the night sky. Air defense guns fired blindly. Sirens echoed between concrete towers. For the people watching from their rooftops, it felt sudden, chaotic, uncontrolled. But what they were witnessing was not panic. It was choreography. At 2:38 a.m. on January 17, 1991, the most carefully planned air campaign in modern history began. Stealth aircraft were already inside Iraqi airspace. Radar systems were already blinded. Command centers were already being cut off. Before Iraq's generals fully understood what was happening, their ability to fight had already begun to disappear. This did not look like how wars were supposed to start. There was no declaration, no warning shots, no buildup of ground forces moving forward, just darkness, then precision. And this is the contradiction at the heart of the Gulf War. Iraq possessed one of the largest armies on earth. Yet on the very first night, it lost control of the war. Because by the time the first bombs fell on Baghdad, the decisive phase of the conflict was already complete. For more defining moments from history, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. In 1991, Iraq possessed one of the largest armies on earth. Nearly 1 million men under arms, thousands of tanks, hundreds of combat aircraft, fresh from 8 years of brutal war with Iran. Saddam Hussein believed his military was battle-hardened and resilient. On paper, Iraq ranked as the world's fourth largest army. And yet in just 43 days, it would be shattered. Not because Iraqi soldiers lacked courage, but because war itself had changed, and Saddam Hussein never understood how. To understand why the Gulf War unfolded the way it did, we have to rewind 6 months. In August 1990, Iraqi forces crossed the border into Kuwait. Kuwait was small, wealthy, and lightly defended. Within hours, it fell. Saddam believed he had executed a quick regional gamble. What he did not expect was a global response. The invasion triggered an international crisis. Oil prices surged. Allies panicked. The United States began assembling a coalition unlike anything seen since 1945. Britain, France, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, even former Cold War rivals supported action. By January 1991, more than 500,000 coalition troops had deployed to the Persian Gulf. And still, no shots had been fired. Saddam Hussein believed time was on his side. He believed the coalition would fracture, that casualties would erode public support, that the United States, scarred by Vietnam, would hesitate. What Saddam failed to grasp was that the decisive phase of the war was not coming on land, it was coming from the air. Modern air war had been quietly transformed during the Cold War. Stealth technology, precision-guided munitions, satellite navigation. These were not theoretical weapons, they were operational, and they were about to be tested at scale. In the hours before the attack, coalition aircraft began moving into position. Stealth fighters slipped past radar. Electronic warfare planes blinded Iraqi defenses. Command centers went dark. Communication lines vanished. And before Iraqi commanders could even issue orders, their ability to fight had already been crippled. The opening strikes were not aimed at frontline troops. They targeted the nervous system of the Iraqi state. Air defense radar, military headquarters, power grids. Within minutes, Saddam Hussein could no longer reliably communicate with his forces. And without communication, numbers meant nothing. Television audiences around the world watched green night vision footage as explosions bloomed across Baghdad. It looked dramatic, but what they were seeing was control. Every target had been chosen months in advance. Every strike calculated. This was not about destruction. It was about paralysis. For Iraqi soldiers in the field, confusion spread. Orders stopped arriving. Air support vanished. Rumors replaced information, and entire units were left isolated, armed but blind. Day after day, the air campaign continued. Bridges collapsed. Supply depots burned. Fuel ran out. Morale drained away. Iraq's massive army was being hollowed out from above. Still, no ground assault came, and that delay was deliberate, because every additional day in the air meant fewer casualties on the ground. The coalition was not rushing toward victory. It was engineering inevitability. By February, the outcome was no longer in doubt. Iraqi forces in Kuwait were exhausted. Many had not slept for days. They lacked food. They lacked fuel. And most importantly, they lacked hope. When the ground war finally began, it was over almost as soon as it started. Coalition forces advanced rapidly. Resistance collapsed. Entire units surrendered without firing a shot. The war that Saddam believed would be decided by tanks ended in hours. In just 100 hours, coalition ground forces achieved their objectives. Kuwait was liberated, Iraq's army was destroyed, and the world was left staring at a new reality. But the success of the air war was not accidental. It was the result of lessons learned the hard way over decades. During the Vietnam War, American air power had failed to deliver decisive results. Aircraft were lost in large numbers. Targets were struck repeatedly with little strategic effect. Planners emerged from Vietnam convinced that air power needed to change. In the years that followed, the United States invested heavily in a new doctrine. Wars would no longer be fought by attrition alone. They would be fought by information, sensors, satellites, electronic warfare. The goal was not simply to destroy enemy forces. It was to collapse their ability to function. This concept became known as fighting the enemy system, not just as soldiers, command centers, communications, logistics. If those could be neutralized, even the largest army would become powerless. During Desert Storm, this theory was tested on a scale never seen before. Coalition planners built a target list containing tens of thousands of sites, each one ranked by priority, each one timed within a carefully sequenced campaign. The goal was simple: paralyze first, destroy later. Iraqi commanders found themselves trapped in a fog of war they could not escape. Orders arrived too late or not at all. Reports contradicted each other. No one knew what was still intact. And without clarity, coordination collapsed. By the time coalition ground forces finally advanced, they were not charging into a battle. They were moving through the remains of a defeated system. The outcome felt sudden, but it had been engineered step by step. This is why the Gulf War mattered far beyond Kuwait. Military observers around the world took notice. China, Russia, NATO states. Everyone understood the implication. Future wars would be decided before the first soldier crossed the border. The age of massed armies had not ended, but the age of fighting blind had. And Saddam Hussein had been the first to learn that lesson the hard way. The Gulf War marked a turning point. It revealed that future wars would be won long before ground troops crossed borders. That information, precision, and planning now mattered more than sheer numbers. That air power could decide conflicts before they truly began. Saddam Hussein did not lose because his army was weak. He lost because he prepared for the last war, while his enemies prepared for the next one. The real lesson of January 17, 1991 is not about bombs or aircraft. It is about misunderstanding change, because by the time Saddam realized what kind of war he was fighting, the war was already over. If you want more stories from history's most defining moments, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications.